Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Eddie, and I'll be your host for this afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome you here to Makers for the demo day of our September 2021 cohort. If you're a regular attendee at these things, or if you've been to one before or a couple before, you'll know that there's, the number of presentations fluctuates a little bit. I think last time we had 2. Normally there's about 4, and this time we've got a whopping 6 for you. But they're all really, really awesome. So make yourselves comfortable and be prepared to get blown away. So with that in mind, I'm going to do as little talking as possible and just try to kind of hand over to the teams as quickly as possible. But I kind of want to take you on a little description of I want to give you a little description of what they've been up to over the whole 12 weeks, because what you're about to see is just what they've been doing in the last 2 weeks, or, if you take into account the time taken to prepare for the presentation, something more like a week and a half. But they've been with us for 12 weeks. And so what have they been doing for those 12 weeks? Well, they started off by learning about basic Ruby syntax, and they picked up a couple of tools that are really important to developers that help them work in teams really smoothly. And then they started thinking about something called test-driven development, which is a best practice used in many software development teams, where you write tests in code that make sure that you are writing something that isn't going to just get broken easily further down the line. So they're thinking about how to build things that are robust and that can be easily understood and easily changed. And then they go on and they continue with this goal of making things easy to change, and they start thinking about something called object-oriented programming. And each of these things they have about a week to focus on. So they do TDD in a week and then OOP in a week. And then they learn how to build web applications, and then they start learning about databases, and then they learn how to work in teams. And all of that stuff is done in Ruby. And then we get them to think about how to learn a new language. And so at that point, some people will have started using Java for the first time. And if you're a Java developer, then you'll probably remember how that feels, especially if you've previously used something like Ruby. It's quite a shock. And so some people have switched to Java halfway through the course, and other people have switched to JavaScript halfway through the course, which is another quite big change there. But they did that gracefully, and you'll see the results of that today. After learning how to learn a new language, they then did 2 longer team projects, one of which they built something to our specification, and then the second of which is going to be presented today, where they've built something according to their own specification. We put them into teams according to the kind of things they would like to build, but other than that, they've done everything themselves. So they've come up with the concept, decided on their MVP, decided how they're going to work in teams and how they share their knowledge. They've decided on their tech stack and all of the various tools that they'll use. They've done all of this completely independently, and you'll see that they've done a really, really amazing job at every point of that journey. So that's it, basically. Yeah. So it's really important to bear in mind that they've done so much more than you'll see today, but at the same time, what you'll see today is amazing. We've got 6 teams to get through. The first one is MovieMine. The second one is Youtunes. Then Slytherin Snake. And then Are You Kitten Me? And then Speed Isle and Check This Out. And they quite sort of neatly, just completely by chance, sort of fall into 3 categories. So the first 2, MovieMine and Youtunes, are both interested in helping people to kind of collate their favorite things. So in the case of MovieMine, they're thinking about how to help people collate their favorite movies and sort of track the things they've watched and have reviewed and enjoyed, or perhaps not enjoyed, and the things they would like to watch in the future. In the case of Youtunes, they're doing similar kind of things with music. And you'll see there's people with cinemas in the background, people with some kind of record players in the background. Those are the ones those are those 2 teams. And then Slither and Snake and Are You Kidding Me have made two quite different, really awesome games. And then the last two teams have kind of shopping focused projects. So Speed Aisle is interested in helping you to make your shopping process more efficient in the supermarket. And I suppose Check This Out is as well, but from a slightly different angle. I'm not going to go into too much detail about those. I want to leave it as a surprise. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to the first team, which is Team Movie Mine. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Eddie. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Nej, and I'm part of the team Movie Miners with Francine, Lauren, and Patrick. I'm going to start us off with talking a bit about our app Movie Mine. I pitched the idea for this app during our final project ideation, and I had the absolute pleasure of working with my team here, who without them, this idea wouldn't have been possible. Ultimately, what it is a movie diary app. Speaking personally, I watch a lot of movies, especially during lockdown, and I've recommended a lot of films to people, and I'm sure that goes the same for most of us here, that when we watch an amazing movie, we might want to talk about it and we want to share that with our friends and family. There's been so many times though that I want to rewatch a film I liked or recommend a certain film to someone, but I just can't remember the name of the film, or I can't put into words what it was about it that I like specifically. Having an app like this would solve that problem, something focused solely on capturing how you felt in the moments you've watched your movies and refer back to them easily in one place. Somewhere you can have one watch list to keep track, as every movie platform doesn't have the same library of films. And lastly, somewhere you can see other people's reviews like yourself without any added clutter searching through Google or apps with a multitude of different features. I'm going to hand off to Lauren, who's going to talk about how we started planning the project.
Thank you, Nej. So we started our initial project planning using Trello, where we brainstormed ideas for our app's name, what features we wanted for our MVP, which is also known as the minimum viable product, as well as ideas for tickets and how we all wanted to work together as a team. We also had a section for sharing any resources that we found. On to the next slide, please. Then we moved on to creating a wireframe for our app. We used a website called Balsamic, which enabled us to create a very simple design for each of Movie Mine's pages. This ensured that everyone in the group was clear about what features on the app were on what page, and it was something we all referred back to frequently while building the project. Now Patrick's going to talk about our tickets and schedule.
Thank you, Lauren. So as a team, we transferred our work items from Wireframe to the project board on GitHub. All developers updated their assigned tickets and moved them from in progress to production. This gave us a snapshot of the milestones. The board also helped us distribute work items. To reduce potential merge conflicts, we worked on different pages of the application. On to the next slide, please. We devised a timetable to structure our day. Over the 2 weeks, we had morning stand-ups to update each other on progress. We also looked at outstanding tickets on the project board. We kept our working practice agile and were able to pair program with different team members as required. At the end of each sprint, we held a retro to discuss what went well and what we could do better. Before a branch merge, we would code review. This gave everyone a chance to explain their code and features. It was also an opportunity to bounce ideas and debug together. Francine will now demonstrate our solution, Movie Mine.
Thank you, Patrick.
So we start on the Movie Mine homepage, which you can see has a carousel showing post images of some movies which are currently popular at the box office. The carousel auto scrolls through the different pages, but you can also do this manually using the arrows. In order to use the site, you need to be a member. So for new users, they can register using the sign up link and fill in all the necessary details. Once they hit submit, they're presented with confirmation they've successfully registered, and they can proceed to log in. Bob will now be taken to the dashboard page, which for all new users will be empty, so he can start adding reviews by clicking this link in the middle of the page. Once he clicks that link, he's taken to a search page where you can look up a movie by its title. So Here we are sending a request to a third-party API, which returns a list of films which matches Bob's search query. Bob can hover over the images and click one of them to add his review. So when he clicks on Endgame, he's taken to another page where he can enter a review for the film and give his rating out of 5 stars. Once he does this and submits the review, it appears on his dashboard. So we're now going to transition to an existing user, Sandy Cheeks, who you can see has several movies in her dashboard, which she has reviewed. So from the dashboard, Sandy can click on any of her existing reviews to see what other users have said about any particular film. So when she selects Drags Me to Hell, she can see her own review as well as reviews from 2 other users. There's a bit of a spoiler in Sandy's review there. Hopefully next time she can add a spoiler alert warning. So now back on the dashboard, if Sandy wants to refresh her memory of her review of a previous film, she can search for a title using the filter function on the dashboard, and she'll be shown any films which match her query. If Sandy is unsure about what film she might want to watch next, she can click the See Similar Movies button to see a list of recommended films based on ones she has already watched. So when she chooses The Conjuring, she's presented with a list of similar films which she may enjoy and which she can add to her watch list. So she's added Evil Dead to her watch list, taken to her watch list page, and this shows a list of films she has added and wants to watch and review at a later date. From here, once she has watched a film, she can add her review here along with a rating. And once that's been submitted, she's taken to her dashboard and we can see that Sinister now appears. So going back to her watch list, she can now remove Sinister, given that she's already seen it and added her review. In addition to removing films from her watch list, Sandy can also choose to remove any of the films she has reviewed from her dashboard. So she can select Logan, and you can see that that review has now been removed. Once done, Sandy can log out to make sure that no one else can access her dashboard and leave a 5-star review for something like Cats under her username, and she is taken back to the main homepage. I'll now pass you back to Nej to talk about how we work together as a team on this project.
Thank you, Francine. This is our retro board, which was created to house an anonymous safe space for the thoughts and suggestions of our group members. All submissions to the board were discussed by the group in order to ensure everyone's voice was heard. It provided us with the opportunity to reflect on different scenarios and learn from their outcomes. For example, during the project, an issue was flagged on the board regarding group members working on the same feature. In response to this, we all committed to ensuring we kept each other updated regularly on what tasks we were working on going forward. Discussing our feelings was comforting, but also productive. There were points in time when we were nervous about not completing certain tasks in the necessary time frame, as things like getting the app to work with a third-party API so we can search any movie would be the mechanism for the entire app, which would allow us to search for movies in the first place. Or having users and encrypted passwords were vital for making the app personal. We overcame these big blockers such as this during our reflections by gradually swapping pairs when we needed to make sure we constantly had fresh eyes providing insight, ensuring we were constantly sharing screens, utilizing collective brainstorming methods and championing trial and error. I hope I speak for the team when I say a big high was when we typed Harry Potter in our search bar on our app for what felt like the 100th time, and it actually worked. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you all enjoyed it. A massive thank you to Superhero Eddie for always popping in at the right time and supporting us. You've been incredible. Thank you to my team, Movie Miners, for making this an incredible end of bootcamp experience I won't forget. Does anyone have any questions at all?
Oh, really, really lovely presentation. Before we get to the questions, I just want to do something that I should have done right at the start, which was to encourage people to use the reactions. So you can do things like applaud, or you can do little hearts, or you can be surprised by things, or you can paste emojis into the chat as well, or otherwise just write excited. You show your excitement in actual words in the chat there. So feel free to get cracking doing that. But the team are also willing to take a couple of questions if there are any from the audience. You can either put it in the chat or raise your hand, and I'll come to you. Sunny.
Have deployed it, so like, can we go and use it? Because I'd really like to.
We haven't deployed it, unfortunately, Sonny. But yeah, maybe we will after this.
Cool beans. Cool.
Some extra motivation there for you to do it, knowing that someone will use it, which is nice. Any other questions from the audience? We've got time for one more if there is one.
Can I ask one? Oh, is there a way to add friends that or add profiles of people that you know whose movie reviews you like and check up on what they're reviewing? And if not, would you guys have a pathway to add that?
Currently, you can kind of click on the movie that you want and just see reviews others have done on it, but that would be a good potential future feature to have once we implement a bit more user functionality for personal profiles. But yeah, that's
awesome. Would love to see that. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, I just allow the time for one more question because it's from a real audience member. Aaron Oakes has asked, how does the similar movies work? So the movie recommendations.
Sorry, I just popped the answer in the chat.
Oh, did you? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll just explain. So what we did was we used a third-party API called the Movie DB. So how that worked was it grabbed the relevant movie's ID, sent a query to the Movie Mind's recommendations route, and that returned a list of similar films based on the one that you're interested in's title. So that's how the recommendations worked.
Cool, thank you, Francine. And really, really well done, team. Like a really awesome product and really, really beautifully presented. So fantastic work. All right, so the next team up is Youtunes. So I'm just going to hand you straight over to them. Please take it away.
Thanks, Eddie. Okay, so welcome everyone. Our team's called Youtunes, and the project has been coded by Aisha, Anna Maria, myself, and Matthew. When we started this project, what we wanted to make was a piece of software which allowed users to find, store, and then share their music. And now I'm going to pass over to Aisha, who will give you a slightly more in-depth run through of the program.
Thank you, Joseph. So yeah, I'm going to show you a demo walkthrough of our application. We start off by signing up as a new user by having a username and password, and using those same credentials to sign in. That then takes us to our main page where we can select search music by genre. I'm going to choose doo-wop, and that returns a list of songs in our database that are for this genre. I'm then going to click add to favorites to add Earth Angel. And as you can see, it gets added to my favorite tunes list. And if I click on that song title, it takes me to a YouTube video of that song. I can also add a song to our database if it's not already there. And that is, I'm going to add Survivor by Destiny's Child. And the genre is going to be R&B. And I can also add a YouTube link of the song. I can then go and search the genre R&B to find that song. And as you see, it gets added to the bottom of our list, and I can add that same song to my favorites. And now I have 2 songs with the video as well. Back on the page, I can search again for another genre. I'm going to choose contemporary jazz. And again, we have a list of songs that fit this genre. I can then log out as a user and ready to sign in again. I'm going to hand over to Matthew to talk about our team planning.
Thanks so much, Aisha. So we wanted to focus both on our individual goals and also our group goals throughout the project. We started a Trello board with one of the menus being for us to store our personal goals. And then we could check back on those personal goals throughout the project to make sure that we were keeping on top of them, or also to update them so that our team could see what our new goals were and help us to achieve them. So for instance, Aisha's goal was to understand the MVC and how those constituent parts work together. Anna and Joe wanted to solidify their understanding of Spring Boot, and I was interested in what is front end. As a group, we also decided on a kind of overarching goal of depth of knowledge. So we wanted to pick a handful of subjects and really drill down on those instead of skating over a kind of wider variety of subjects and having less of an understanding of how those work. So we started by writing user stories for how we thought our users would want to be able to use our app. So for instance, this one here, as a big music fan, so that I can listen to my tunes again, I'd like to save a list of favorite jams, which we could then break down into sign up, log in, sign out, and favorites. And then from there, we could break those down further until we had created individual tickets, which we could use to build our program from the ground up. And then we used those to populate our Trello board, which Joe will now talk about.
Thank you, Matthew. So once we've got our user stories and our tickets done, we then add these tickets to our Trello board. This Trello board will include a to-do list, in progress, blocked if we're stuck with it and can't progress, in review, and then in production, which means it's been added to the most up-to-date version of the program. These tickets are then essentially assigned a difficulty level ranging from extra small, which just means a fairly easy thing to implement, all the way up to extra large, which would suggest it would take a long time or require several coders to work on it. And we also kept our team goals in the Trello board just to remind ourselves throughout the project of what we were working towards. Here you can see a very early on plan or design for our front end. This is actually for the MVP, which stands for minimum viable product. And I guess you can think of this as like your first prototype. So for this prototype, we wanted the user to be able to enter a genre, for example, jazz, and submit that, and then it will return all the tunes of that genre. For example, in this case, we've got an artist called Matthew Reed Trio and a song Arbor, who are very good, and I highly suggest you check them out. And this is a more developed sort of front end design. You can see how it progressed and got more complex as the design process went on.
Speaking on our teamwork, we did want to set out wider goals as a team that we wanted to achieve throughout the project. One of these being a focus on individual research. As we were using new technologies and things that we had already used before, we did again want to gain more in-depth knowledge on what we were using and how they would actually be implemented into our program. So we did want to take the time out each day to really research what we were using and sharing our knowledge as well with each other. We also wanted to make it known that there was a freedom to make mistakes and that we had the support from each other if we had any blockers, for example, and if we made mistakes to overcome them together by ourselves and just working towards that end goal that we had set for ourselves. We also did want to outline our communication styles quite early on with our Trello tickets that we had created. Certain things were done individually in pairs, and for example, when we were stuck on huge blockers, for example, when I was working on the favorites feature, it did involve a number of different elements to make it happen, and we ended up mobbing as a team to share our ideas on how to overcome the blockers that I was facing. And that really helped in implementing that feature, as you saw earlier in the demo. In addition to mobbing on blockers and pairing, we did have stand-ups and stand-downs at the end of the day, where we basically got together as a team and shared what we had worked on throughout the day, if we had any blockers by the end of the day, and also if we had any commits to merge onto GitHub to the main branch, and to also resolve any conflicts that were there. So I think we did manage to work really well together as a team. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for that. Yeah, that's us as Youtunes. I want to welcome any questions you have for us.
Lovely presentation. Thank you so much. Really, really great work. Are there any questions from the audience? Any questions?
Yes, I have one.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Idris from Google. Yes, looks great. Amazing, amazing project. I just have one question regarding the genres that you have. Are they dynamic or are they hard-coded in a database somewhere?
I think they're hard-coded right now. If we were to add a new genre, we'd have to change the HTML CSS field.
Mm-hmm.
When you type in a new genre, when you add a song and type in a new genre right now, there isn't anything to stop the user putting anything in. So that's something we would have to add.
We were also looking into sort of developing this further and definitely using a music API to sort of bring in a lot more to the database. We started with coding just to make sure that we have all the functionality there. So then when it comes to adding recommendations and everything's already working. So yeah, that's for our future plans for the project.
All right, thanks.
Cool. Thanks for the question. Any other, we've got time for one more if there is another one. Otherwise we'll move on. Any others? Cool, all right. Thank you again, Youtunes, for a really lovely presentation and awesome work with the project. So next up is the pair of games. The first one is Slither and Snake.
Thank you, Eddie. Can everyone see that okay? Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are Team Tiger Cube Games, and today we are releasing our first game called Slithering Serpent. Our group is comprised of Maisha, Daniel, Leo, and myself, and would like to begin our presentation with a short product demo. We will now be moving on to discuss the engineering behind the game. So I'll hand it over to Daniel to introduce this section.
In this project, we follow the multi-screen structure. We have a welcome screen, game screen, and end game screen. For both of the welcome and the end game screen, we use the 2D buttons for the user input. On the welcome screen, we created the animated background. Our biggest issue was with the screens. The elements of the screen weren't in the same position on every computer. We used the orthographic camera to solve that issue. I pass now to Leo, who will talk more about the game logic.
Central to the gameplay is obviously the snake and its movement. For the MVP, we actually created a prototype which had quite different movement type with smooth animation and follow logic for the tail elements to follow the head. At one point in the project, we switched to a simpler system instead, which was grid-based. This used an array of body parts that were written, and to create the movement, they were deleted from one end and added in the other end as the snake's head moved forward. This made additional game elements and features much easier to add than in the prototype. I'm now going to pass on to Delia to explain how the gameplay features interacted with the snake.
Thank you, Leo. In this section, I'll be providing you with a brief description of the gameplay and the way in which objects interact on screen. So firstly, we have the snake eating an apple object. This is engineered to increase the size of the snake by one body segment. The next object the snake interacts with when we render the game is the rotten apple one, which shrinks the body of the snake by one body part every time it gets eaten. To add more complexity to the game and create a better user experience, we have introduced a randomized apple object, which changes shape every time it appears on screen. Lastly, the bonus element of the game is the banana, which increases the speed of the snake for a set period of time. This will be demonstrated by Maisha in a later video. In terms of the rules of play, there are two death conditions worth noting. So the game is designed to end if the snake is shorter than its original start size, which includes its head, tail, and one body segment, as you can see on the left-hand side video. A player can also lose the game if the snake touches the edges of the screen, as shown in the video on the right-hand side. To put a creative spin on the original snake game, as we all know it, we have implemented a flashing tail feature. So instead of ending the game as the snake collides with its own body, the snake will continue its movement across the body, leaving behind a trail of flashing segments. So it's almost like a real snake loses its skin. We thought of it that way. I'll now pass it on to Maisha, who will be covering the game sounds and the music.
Thanks, Celia. So to improve user experience and to make our Hungry Snake game more gamified, we added music and sounds. For example, the start screen, the game screen, and the end screen all have 3 different sounds, and each item, the good apple, the rotten apple, and the banana had its own sound, as well as so to make it more unique. We used libgdx, and it required a certain bit depth and file type. We looked through the documentation to make the process easier. So it was easy to implement. So Delia would now show you the example of the sounds. So now we move on to some key bug fixes. To find bugs, we would continuously play games after each feature was added, and during gameplay, we would notice particular bugs. One of the first key bugs early on was that apples would spawn randomly on the snake's body, as opposed to spawning around the snake. So we fixed the code so that the snake, so the apples spawn randomly around the snake instead. We also noticed that the apples would spawn on the edges of the screen, and this would make the quality of the gameplay kind of low because the snake would die instantly. So we moved that so this apples would spawn closer into the screen instead. The second bug fix was that during the creation of the snake's head would reverse back into the body, which defeated the gameplay feature we wanted. We successfully fixed this bug by changing user control so the user can no longer reverse the snake's head into the body. And as Delia showed before earlier, the snake's head merged into the body and the segment of the body would flash and will cut off. So now we'll move on to the score system. The top right video shows the snake eating a banana, which triggers the score to turn yellow for that duration. And the below video shows the score flashing red when he eats rotten apple. And the last video shows the game over screen with the final score. We will now move on to the ways we worked together and what went well. At the start of the project, we planned out the pros and cons of the games, and we wanted to build, and we decided to build the Hungry Snake game because it allowed us to focus on logic and it allowed us to be the most creative.
From the beginning of the project, we broke problems down into the smallest pieces we could. This helped us overcome the initial unfamiliarity with the tech stack, and it allowed the team to work efficiently on what was initially quite a narrow code base. Complex game mechanics like movement were built up in stages.
We had an independent research time when we started a new ticket, and we shared the knowledge on the retro every evening.
Efficient decision-making early on in our project allowed us to identify a key handful of features we wanted to implement during our first sprint. This kept us on track to develop a minimum viable product and progressively build on those original features. We'll now move on to discuss the project lifecycle.
Following decisions from the MVP, there were several key points in the project where the team met to make what would be crucial decisions for the success. After the initial planning, the next key decision was when we moved from the prototype movement to the grid-based movement. This made it much easier to add features and allowed the team to rapidly advance the project.
Our second key decision point was at the end of the first sprint. Based on the lack of resources available on testing with a game engine and the complexity of the various classes and methods used, our team made a joint decision to move the focus away from this. So although we were able to set up the correct file structure and also compute a unit test to just make things work and see how it plays out, we felt that this would be we felt that this would have substantially slowed us down in the whole game development process.
A mistake we made early on was that we were really poor with separating classes, which meant a lot of tech debt built up along the way, which made us think in the second week, do we continue to refactor our code or do we add new features? Due to the time we had left, we decided to switch focus on features.
The other key decision point was when we needed to prioritize our future ideas on the second week, Tuesday. We realized that we couldn't finish all of the future. Leo will talk about the team's summary now.
So overall, we felt a team we were successfully applying the libgdx game engine in creating a game and understanding how the render game cycle operated. We believe we have a creative take on the original Snake game with our original features, and it actually has a good user experience. It's quite fun to play and intuitive and has no bugs. The weaknesses are the test coverage is quite poor and separation of classes is less than ideal, but this did reinforce our understanding of good engineering principles and the importance of building those in from the beginning of the project. Are there any questions that anyone would like to ask the team? Microtransactions. Yes, perhaps they could. Snake skins. I can draw lots of snake skins.
Oh, really, really lovely presentation, folks. So super well done. Really awesome project. Yeah, super impressive. Are there any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I do have another one if everybody's.
Feel free.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said that you start to use unit tests. Like, well done on the game. It's not common to have unit tests, so well done. That's amazing. How hard was it to unit test the game mechanics?
Very good question. So that's where we kind of got stuck with the unit testing because of the methods and the way libgdx is set up. So it's got specific methods that we had no idea about, like render, show. So we had to learn how those operate. And as Leo and Maisha mentioned, we've got a lot of we have a really respected separation of classes, so our methods do a lot more than they should. It's quite hard to distinguish a specific unit test that we had to apply. We've just done one to make sure that the structure fits in and it works with you know, the whole classes and the test folders. But in terms of testing the mechanics, it could be done. It just requires us to split up, you know, most of the methods in the classes and strip it down a bit.
Nice, thanks.
Cool. Thanks for the question, Idris. Got time for one more if there is another one in the audience. Otherwise, we'll move on. Any more?
Yeah, hi Aaron here. Lost one in chat there with all the earned congratulations that flew past. I'm curious what the original MVP feature set was and how you decided where to draw that line for something that clearly has so much scope at the end.
I could probably answer this. The MVP, we really just wanted a snakehead object moving on the screen was pretty much while we initially tried to work out how game engines worked, how the game state updated, and how you would control these things and the various draw function options. And that's how we arrived at the circle objects moving. But what was apparent was in the engineering for that, as we got the MVP, It was fairly bespoke and custom, and it had implications for all features down the line. With the grid-based system, you can often locate objects simply by their coordinates. With the first prototype, we'd have to look at things like sprite collision and things that are much more complex to deal with. So the MVP in itself was actually very simple, but that gave us confidence when we achieved that quite early on to then iterate, move away onto the what we felt was a better system for the scope of the project.
Cool. Thanks for the question, Aaron. Nice answer, Leo.
Eddie, can I just ask one quick question?
Of course, yeah, please.
Hopefully, answer won't be so long. So, what would the team do differently if they had to do it all again?
I think just to quickly note that I guess we discussed this as a team earlier, and that we would focus on separating classes and like abiding by key engineering principles. So kind of drawing out the diagrams of each classes, what methods they include and how they all interact with each other. And I don't know if Daniel, you want to add on, or Leo and Delia?
Just for me, it's what I think it's a good idea. Next time we follow the better structure early on the development, not later, how we did, because it was really hard to implement the new structure after we have many features and everything.
Cool. Any more? Heard an intake of breath as if someone was going to talk, but
sorry, I was just going to say as a follow-up that I think it's a great learning experience for the team there. You've made all the classic mistakes that people made developing software for the past 20, 30 years, and you've done it in 2 weeks. So now you know what not to do from real life experience as opposed to just from theory. So it's great.
Yeah, really, really well said. Thank you. Thanks for the question and thanks for the observation there. Yeah, really, really pertinent. All right. So next up is the second team that's made a game, and not only have they made a game, but they've made what is undoubtedly the cutest looking application on show today. So please take it away. Are you kidding me?
Hello, everyone. So welcome to You Kitten Me. And our team was made of Anna, Eva, Ranja, and myself. So Anna will now share with you all our GitHub link if you want to take a further look at the details of our project. So we would like to present to you, as you can see, Are You Kitten Me, which is a positively amusing feline game. This is the latest mobile RPG adventure game, and it's the game you didn't know you needed, but you now absolutely must have in your life. Let's take a look. So the idea, let us walk through how the project was born. So we were heavily inspired by classic arcade games such as Pac-Man, simple games such as Flappy Bird, and we discussed our favorite genres at the start to create, other than we all really in games and we look at. So we loved adventure role-playing games such as Divinity, Baldur's Gate, as well as games such as Overcooked, Final Fantasy, and of course the original role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons. We got hopelessly addicted to this childhood called Sokuban, which is retro graphics.
We wanted to have Cat as our main character because we love cats. They're cute, they're funny, and also they have a lot of bizarre behaviors. And we wanted to include some of these behaviors in our game, like, for example, catching butterflies or being scared of cucumbers. So the main character of our game is adorable ginger cat. As I mentioned before, we have cucumber as our mortal enemy. We have butterfly to catch. We also have fish as a favorite cat food, and axolotl just because it's funny and we thought, why not?
So now moving on to how we chose. So now we have decided like what the team is going to be doing and like what we wanted. So then it was up to the team name. So we made a bunch of suggestions. and we voted for it, and we ended up with Are You Kidding Me? So after we've decided the name, we had to decide what we're going to be making it on. So we decided on mobile because, well, mobiles are really diverse and we haven't had much experience in it. So we thought it would be a great learning experience. And then from there, we had to just decide what development environment we wanted. So Android Studio has a lot of tools. So we thought it would be a nice way of testing it or trying it.
Thank you, Ranja. Moving on to the front end, when we were discussing the graphics, we all agreed that given the adorable, whimsical, and quaint nature of the game, wanted the game to be fairly relaxing and just brings a smile to the player's face. So we agreed that a pastel color palette would be perfect for this. So you can see here, you can see our color palette with the hexadecimals. And we went on to create some mock-ups. You can see a more detailed version again in our GitHub. And initially, our idea was just to have 2 simple levels. We really wanted to include some kind of puzzle. So some kind of maze would be perfect with introductory screens, with scores, possibly HP, as well as a timer, just to make the game a little bit more intense.
Now moving on to the best part.
All right, so here we have a little playthrough. So our mission is to get the kitten home before it gets sleepy and falls asleep. We start with level 1, which is the aquarium level. The kitten is hungry, must feed before its journey. So we need to catch the fish in order to fuel up on energy. And also we need to be careful because we don't want to touch the deadly axolotls. So we're ready. Let's go on this journey. As you can see, kitten is in the aquarium. We start off with a HP of 50, and we also implemented score. So every time you touch a fish, you gain a score of 10. Every time you touch an axolotl, it will freeze for 3 seconds, as well as decrease HP by 10. We have a timer of 30 seconds to make it a little bit more intense. And can we do it? Yes, success. Okay. And moving on to level 2, which is the maze level. So kitten has now gotten lost on its way home. And in order to home, you navigate through red leaves to catch butterflies for bonus points. Let's take a look. So here we have our retro maze. You can see you can slide the kitten around to navigate, and beware of the cucumbers. When you touch the cucumber, it decreases health points, and the butterfly will randomly wait after being touched and bonus scores. And here we are, we've made it. We've won.
All right, so now we're going to be moving on to what happens if you lose. So again, we'll lose quickly in this time. So with the aquarium, so you may have noticed some sounds when you touch some fish. They make noises. I guess it's kind of hard to hear right now. So if you touch it, you can see it decreases the HP by 10. And you can also see the score decreased by 10 as well. So it's 13, now it's 20. Timer turns red when you're close to the end. And in this case, we're going to lose by the timer. Oh, whoops, wrong video. Give me a second. Oh, great. Technical errors. This is the right one. Okay. Yeah, so you can't move the hand while it's up here, like while it's stuck, because yeah. So yeah, the timer gets to 0 seconds and you get this beautiful screen. Okay. Okay, let's move on, please. There we go.
Thank you so much, Ranjit, for that. And it really wouldn't be a Zoom presentation without a few technical difficulties, so that's okay. So just to recap, today on Are You Kidding Me, we bring to you 2 thrilling puzzles. Here are some of the main features and highlights, as well as an adorable protagonist, 5 deadly enemies in the shapes of cucumbers and axolotls, randomly generated maze, dynamic moving characters, an immersive 8-bit soundtrack for that cinematic experience, and aquarium level. We have classic arcade retro style graphics for a nostalgia feel, health management, the ability to track score, as well as a sleepy timer to keep you on your paws. So these are the highlights and some of the awesome features from Are You Kidding Me? Are You Kidding Me? We also thought this project is incredibly scalable, because if you wanted to, you can easily expand it into a franchise by changing the protagonist to a puppy or a bunny or whatever takes your fancy.
Right, so now moving on to the learning journey. So with organization, we had a Trello board. So create tickets to help manage our ideas, like with what tasks what we're doing, and just what we want to include, just so it's all neat in one place.
Thank you. So share a little bit about how we stayed organized on the project. We used multiple platforms such as Google Sheets to create our schedule to keep ourselves on time. We used our Google Docs as an initial brain dump for all of our ideas and creativity, as well as weird and wonderful imagery. We used a mirror board to streamline our graphics and front-end designs. And of course, frequent communications on Slack. Over the week, Eddie has bore witness to this. We've pretty much spammed each other with all sorts of cat-related GIFs and graphics and just anything that took our fancy.
Yep, thank you. So now feel free to read some appreciations while I talk about this. So the most rewarding part of this project was having something working and moving at the end. Like the satisfaction of having it actually building and working was great. And our teamwork was also really good, because I don't really think we had many problems, if at all. So we learned about how we work, how each other think and work, which was great. And the biggest challenges, so a lot of, in my team, most people didn't have experience with Android Studio. So learning how to use it was a bit of a challenge, took like a few days to learn what we're trying to do. And testing was a big issue, because like for the maze, if it's randomly generated, we need the pathfinder to find the end. And that's clearly an issue. So we didn't actually do it. But and we only had 2 weeks to do this, which was another challenge. Right.
Thank you so much. That's all from us. So we'd like to share special thank yous for that. Our project wouldn't have been possible without. You can see those at the bottom. And we'd now like to invite any questions.
Amazing work, team. Really, really well done, and beautiful presentation. Any questions from the audience?
I do have one. Hi, it's Idris from Google again. You said you have random generated maze. How hard was it? And did you use any known algorithms, or did you just try it out?
At first we started with set maze for each game, but then we decided to try implement the random generation maze algorithm. Sorry, we chose the depth first search, and since there's a lot of materials online, there are a lot of tutorials, it wasn't so hard to implement, and it was definitely one of the most interesting parts of the project, just to implement this algorithm.
Nice. Yeah, by the way, I love the game over screen. It made me laugh here.
Yeah, that's very funny. Yeah. Thanks for the question, Idris. We've got time for one more if there is another one. Any more for any more?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Please go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's Mohammed there. I just wanted to say, love the fact that, that there was the engineering side to it, but the fun side to it was amazing. And I wanted to be cheeky and do a special shout out to Zia, because not only is she marking the end of this boot camp, but it's her 3-year anniversary at Apple today. So congratulations, Zia.
Well, thank you so much, Mohammed. That was really unexpected. I feel a little bit emotional now. Thank you.
Happy Appleversary.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thanks, Mohammed. That's a really sweet thing to do. Really nice of you. Cool. All right. So next up, we've got the pair of shopping-related apps. The first one of which wants to help you navigate the aisles more efficiently and more speedily. Hence the name Speed Aisle. Over to you.
Okay. Grocery shopping can be really frustrating. Maybe you try to keep in mind every single item you need to buy, or maybe you use a plain old shopping list that helps you to remember about everything. But seems like it can add even more frustration and struggling to your shopping experience. Let me explain why. Shopping lists are usually not structured at all. Carrots, shampoo, toothpaste, chicken, bread, apples, you have everything without any order, and to get everything at your basket, you need to look through every single item multiple times and hope that you haven't missed anything on the previous shelves. It feels really annoying. So we believe being a great developer is about making users' lives better. So we made an app which helps to organize a shopping list and save some time and frustration at groceries. The user adds an item to the relevant category. For example, bread goes to the bakery and apples to the fruits and vegetables. Categories can be sorted in the correct order corresponding to the layout of your local grocery. So when you are browsing some fruits and vegetables, you don't need to look through every single line of your list. Your categories are already grouped, your items are already grouped in categories, and so it doesn't matter in which order you've added apples, oranges, and carrots. They would always be next to each other. And now Parsa will show us how it works.
All right, so here's our product demo. So here I am, going to the About page. This is our team. And if you'd like to look at our GitHub profiles, feel free to do so. And now I'm going to sign up my Google account with one click, which is very handy. And if we successfully log in, we'll see some onboarding information at the top, just so it gives you like a handy little place to know what to do. Now I'm going to go add some items to my shopping list. And I'm going to add some apples to the fruit and veg category. And next I'm going to add some bread to the bakery category. And after we've done that, I say that I'll add some ice cream as well, because why not? Feel free to add that. Now, after I've done that, I notice how the categories don't actually match up to the store I'm in. So I'm going to order those around so they correspond to the local store I'm in right now. So I'm going to add frozen to the top, fruit and veg to the bottom. And now when I go back to my list, they correspond exactly how it's described in my store. So now we have frozen at the top. I'm going to tick off the items. I want to delete them, but it's better to just delete them all at once. So now my list is empty and we're in a clean slate. Now let's say I change my store. Now I'm going to go from Golders Green to a different store. So I can click on it. We have a range of different stores, but I'm going to select Finchley Road because it's the one closest to me. And now, as you can see, the map is updated to O2 Center, Sainsbury's, which is very nice. So I could go back to my list. And now if I'm done with the day, I can log out. And now we're going to have Alex explain our team process and how we built it, what technologies. On to you, Alex.
Thanks, Parsa. So we started by designing the MVP, deciding what are the necessary features for the user to have, the minimal but good experience at the same time. So we designed the Trello board and decomposed the MVP into different user stories and different features we could build. And after that, on Miro, we designed the user interface so we could start thinking about styling properties, how the web page would actually look to the user. We also think about doing the design of the web page a bit more responsively. So if they resize the web page, what will happen, how that displays to them. And after all the planning was done, from day to day, we conducted stand-ups and we decided who's going to work on what feature. And after that was done, we coded for the majority of the day. And if anybody would get stuck and someone would not be stuck, then they hop on together and then they'll pair program trying to debug and use different debugging methods to debug the code and hopefully get the feature shipped to production. And at the end of the day, we'd have retros and would come together again as a team. And on GitHub, which is a version control tool, we would try to merge a code, solve conflicts, and hopefully it ships to production without actually breaking any test, and yeah, just get the code running right. So now moving on to the technologies we used. I'm first quickly going to talk about how the app works very briefly. So it's basic browser to web server relationship. So when you're as a user from the browser, when you add an item or you reorder a category, it sends a request to the server, which is processed, and hence the database is updated. And let's say when you log in as a user with your Google account, then you make a request, which is processed. Then data is pulled from the database, passed onto the web server. It processes that data and checks that we're sending the data to the right user, and then the data flows back to the browser, and then the user can see all the items. So now about the tech stack. So we use Node.js and Postgres. Now the tech stack, we didn't choose the tech stack because it's super popular or it's the fastest. We focused on something that allows us to deploy our apps really quickly and inexpensively. So all the technologies we used were free. And because deployment was so quick, we were able to build as many features as we possibly could to improve the user experience. So that's the reasoning behind our tech stack. And that's all from me now. I'll pass it on to Dan, who will talk about project overview.
Cool. So other than the project going incredibly, because it's amazing, some sort of key successes, the fact that we planned so well early on with our Trello and our Miro boards, and the fact that we worked well as a team together meant that we could actually get a quick MVP out within sort of a day or two. We could all work individually because we had dissected the tickets down to a point where we could just get the core foundation of the project built. And obviously a quick MVP means that we had more time for the rest of the week to put more features in, focus on some of the user experience, like how a user was going to navigate the page and all of these things. So that was really nice. And obviously it ended up looking really, really good and we're all very happy. Obviously, there's difficulties with every project. For us, the biggest one, I think, was we didn't interrogate our initial database structure. We had designed a linear database because it worked really well with the list, items, and store structure. But we got so in depth in that we sort of forgot about the concept of users. And so further down the line, we had a little bit of difficulty attaching lists to users, which we resolved, but obviously slowed us down a bit. We used single sign-on, as Parsa showed, which was super simple to implement in the project. And it was really, really cool to be able to use something that was new, but obviously with new tech comes new challenges. And so we had to walk through the unexpected things that arise because of that. And particularly at the beginning, it was quite a small app. So we were all working very much on the same files for different features. So we'd often have a few code conflicts and merging needed to be done. But we got through that well as a team at the end of the day in our retros and worked through the merges and came up with a really great project that works and we're really proud of. So yeah, if you want to check out the project yourself, you can at speedal.herokuapp.com. Feel free to check out the repo on GitHub and add any comments and stuff. And that's the team. And thank you so much for listening.
Amazing, really, really well done, and awesome project. Are there any questions? Got time for one or two questions.
Yeah, Idris from Google again. I have a question. I really like how you can reorganize the aisles for your shopping list, right? But is it linked to the store? I mean, for example, let's say you reorder now for the Aldi in Golders Green. If another user comes in, he will see the same order. Is it like per user?
Yeah.
And for now, it's linked to the shop address, like shop ID, I guess, but it can be changed. For example, we can add some custom order, for example, if you don't find your shop in the list, or if you just don't want to share where you usually make your grocery shopping. So it's possible. But for now, it's just linked to the shop address.
Cool. Cool. Thanks for the question, Idris. Aaron had a similar question. Any other questions? All right, let's move on then. Okay, so we've just got one more presentation to go. And this presentation is another shopping-based one, slightly different angle on this one, but they're also thinking about how to make your shopping experience better and more efficient. So I'll now hand you over to check this out.
Hello everyone, we are team Check This Out, Tommy, Anmol, Sunny, and myself. Here you can see us on Google Office Terrace in one of our brainstorming sessions. So what brought us together as a team was our passion for machine learning and the possibility of building a product that would be helpful in our daily lives. So we had a very modest goal to start with. Let's build a product which will change the world. No pressure. Jokes aside, we came up with an idea of building a self-checkout using machine learning that can automatically detect fruits and vegetables and add them to your basket. Now, Anmol is going to give us an overview how machine learning works.
All right, guys, so just do a quick exercise. I'll show you some images and I want you to think about what you're seeing. Make a quick prediction that you're confident with. Okay, here's the first one. Go. And here's the next. Okay, now let's try a bit of a tougher one. Okay, so for those of you who don't recognize this, I'll tell you that this is called a lychee. There you go. Take a look at the picture again as much as you want, and you can understand this to be a lychee. Okay, and here's another pic. Okay, so hopefully most of you look at this and also think it's a lychee. But the question is why? It's a completely different picture. The shell in this one, on these ones, is closed, so you can't see the internals, and there's a lot more in the frame. Also, some of you have never seen a lychee before, but now all of a sudden I give you a picture and you can recognize it anyway. The reason for this is probably because you're very used to looking at images and analyzing them. You can discern their size, color, texture, shape, and any other discerning features. So even if I show you a completely different image, you can recognize it to be a lychee. This ability of deconstructing images based on their characteristics and using that information to identify what's being seen on the screen is that process can be done by computers too. And we call that process machine learning. And in this case, transfer learning to accomplish image classification, which is the basis of our project.
Alongside this being our final projects couple of weeks, it also happened to be Google's internal kind of London hackathon at the same time. And as all four of us were Googlers, we decided we would enter this project for that as well. It became a bit of a mad rush because the deadline for that was Wednesday, so finishing the MVP or the product by Tuesday evening. But yeah, after a mad rush and a few late nights, recording and editing a video that you then had to submit as a part of your application, we got there in the end. So what we'd like to do is to share with you the video that we submitted, if that's all right.
We've all been there, at the supermarket self-checkout. You put down that piece of ginger to weigh on the scales and have to click through 5 screens on an unresponsive touchscreen covered in COVID, wondering whether ginger is a root vegetable, a fruit, or an exotic item, whatever that is.
We've implemented machine learning into self-checkout with vegetable and fruit detection. So there is no more clicking through lots of screens. You simply bring the fruit or veg towards the scanner, which detects it and adds it to your basket. This speeds up the shopper's experience, which has benefits for both the customer and the business through shorter queues. It would reduce the need for unnecessary plastic packaging on items that could be sold loose. That way, wonky fruits aren't wasted just because they don't fit the supermarket standards. Of course, it's not always apples and oranges. Sometimes it's oranges and grapefruits. And our ML model finds that kind of ambiguity challenging. Therefore, when the confidence isn't high enough, the user is prompted to confirm.
After exploring several machine learning options, including TensorFlow, GCP, and AutoML, we settled on Google's Teachable Machine, a transfer learning model. It just needed some pictures to train on, then it was good to go. We tried a few existing datasets. In the end, we created our own with a selection of fruits and veg given to us by the Google cafeteria. To reduce the risk of adding the wrong item, we collate confidence levels of multiple predictions, automatically placing confident predictions in the basket, whilst prompting for user confirmation when there's ambiguity.
We'd now like to demonstrate the time savings of such technology. On the left is Sunny A at the supermarket, scanning 5 items at the self-checkout. And on the right is Sunny B, scanning the same set of items at Check This Out.
Teachable Machine is a great resource for a quick model with accurate image classification, but it falls short when similar items are involved. A more nuanced model that could potentially do multiple object detection with independent confidence scores would be the next stage for our checkout. As an end goal, incorporating a Google-backed ML model with accurate object detection would be a cool business avenue to explore with supermarkets.
We were team Check This Out, 4 Noogler apprentices. We formed a team based on our common fascination with machine learning, and in particular, its use in the real world to make our lives easier, more accessible, and more environmentally friendly.
We loved working as a team, and I believe we complemented each other's strengths and weaknesses very well. Sunny had a great knowledge of machine learning, and he was very generous sharing it with us. Tommy, turns out, was a real talent, not only in front of the camera, but also at screenwriting. And we discovered that Amol wasn't only a brilliant coder, but also a great filmmaker. Who knew? Finally, I am quite proud of myself that I encouraged the team to participate to London Hack Week, because we ended up winning not only 1, but 2 awards.
So this was our first machine learning project. And as you can imagine, there was so many cool and exciting new things to learn. So much so that we spent the first few days just looking around at all the different things that we could do. And it was like, oh, this is so cool. Let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at that. Can we do this? Can we add this feature? And this happened at the expense of the quality of the code and our following of the software engineering process. So we didn't have any tests and the quality of the code was very poor. So that's a good learning experience to always write tests and always plan what you're going to do and document it properly.
Guys, so thank you for listening. Our prototype of our app is available to be viewed on the web. That's the link, and I believe we'll also try to post it in the chat. Try it out with your own fruits and veg, and have fun having your own ML checkout experience. I believe also a big thanks to Zach from Google and Eddie from Makers, and of course all the cohort and all of you for coming here. And thanks for listening, and looking forward to any questions you have.
Cool. Thank you so much. Really, really awesome projects. And congratulations for your 2 awards at the Google Hackathon. Really, really amazingly well done. Any questions?
Yeah, Idris from Google again. Yeah, so you mentioned that you didn't have time to make unit tests, right? What do you think, how would you actually test the whole system to make sure that everything is fine, right? Because it looks like it's a lot of setup, right? Camera, rear fruits and stuff like this, right? Did you think of a way where you could like test more fruits and vegetables that you can have around to basically expand the project a little bit?
Is it all right if I take this one because Idris is my mentor? I want to answer his question. Hey, Idris. So I was thinking about this when we were doing the development of it, and it's pretty interesting how the teachable machine at least works. Is it just takes it? You just need to give it a snapshot of the webcam, and it takes that, you make a request for that snapshot, and you get returned your values of confidence. So in my mind, I was thinking if you use something, at least because we use Node.js. So one testing thing I know how to use is Cypress. If Cypress had an ability to embed like an already existing image that you know what it is, I would just simply send that off, get a response from the server, see what's displayed on the screen, and try to, since Cypress lets you basically simulate the user experience, just see what the user experience continues to look like as different images are shown to the webcam. Obviously, it's images being sent off, but hopefully the webcam works, and it's all good. I guess for testing the webcam, that might be a bit of a challenge, thinking about if there's a testing framework out there that can, get access to your webcam, but I wouldn't know of any that exists right now, so that'd probably be something to look into. But yeah, thanks for the question.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for the question, Idris. Any other questions? Any other questions from the audience? All right. Well, I would like to ask you all to do one final round of appreciative comments and emojis. Imagine that you're now applauding the whole cohort for their hard work. Go for it. Emoji like you've never emojied before.
Yeah. I do have one thing to say. I'm very impressed by all the projects. It's like, so you had only 2 weeks, right, to do all of that. They all have like a level of finish, which is impressive for like a 2 weeks project, and well organized. And yeah, I'm very impressed. So congrats to everybody.
Cool. Thanks, Idris. I couldn't agree more. I think you really hit the nail on the head there. Super impressive. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, really well done to the whole cohort. It's been a real pleasure working with all of you. I'm happy that we're not saying goodbye right now, because I'll see you at 4 o'clock, and we'll get to reflect on the whole experience then. And thanks to everyone who's come along to make this day, this afternoon special. Thanks for coming along to see the presentation. Thanks for asking questions, for showing your appreciation with emojis and whatnot. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.